I still remember the first time I saw her. It was the middle of June, and the New York heat had already taken hold of the city like a stubborn fever. I was at Washington Square Park, sketchbook in hand, trying to draw the fountain, trying and failing. My art professor had told me once that I had too much control, not enough chaos. I never understood what he meant until she walked into my frame. Her name was Emily Carter. Red dress, sunlit hair that danced in the breeze, and eyes that didn't quite belong to this world. She was chasing a dog, this little black mutt that clearly didn't care that she was wearing heels. She tripped, caught herself mid-fall, laughed, and looked up right at me. "I swear he's possessed," she said, brushing hair from her face. "Or just free," I replied without thinking. She tilted her head. "That's the best thing I've heard all week." That's how it started. Not with fireworks or fate or something cinematic. Just a dog, a park, and a sentence that felt like it belonged in a movie. We talked for hours that day, about books, jazz, childhood scars, and ridiculous fears. She told me she was a writer, though she hadn't published anything yet. I told her I was an artist, though I rarely finished a piece. We both laughed at how incomplete we were. "You ever notice how broken people find each other?" she asked that night, sitting on the park bench with her knees pulled to her chest. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe we just see each other more clearly." I don't know how to describe the months that followed except to say they felt unreal. Like I was living inside the kind of story I used to draw but never finish. We danced in empty streets, we watched thunderstorms from her fire escape, we slow danced to vinyl records in her apartment at 2 a.m. When the city felt quiet, and the world shrank to just the two of us. She had this habit of leaving notes on my coffee cup, inside my sketchbook, on the mirror in my bathroom. Not grand declarations, just reminders. "You are not lost. You are more than you think. Breathe." I fell in love with her heart before anything else. The way she saw the world, not as it was, but as it could be. She could walk into a room and see stories no one else noticed. People weren't strangers to her, they were potential characters, souls waiting to be understood. And she wanted to understand everything. One night in October, we lay on the rooftop of her building, wrapped in a blanket, the city glowing below us. She turned to me and said, "Do you think it's possible to love someone too much?" I looked at her, memorizing every curve of her face in the moonlight. "Not if they love you back the same way." She smiled, almost sadly. "Good." There was something in the way she said it. Like she was collecting moments. Like she already knew something I didn't. But I was too in love to question it. She made me believe in things I'd stopped believing in: serendipity, healing, forgiveness. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the future. Because I saw her in it. I started noticing it in the little things. At first, I thought I was imagining it. The way Emily would drift mid-conversation. Like her thoughts had wandered somewhere far away, and left her body behind. She'd blink and come back, smiling to cover it up, but I could see it in her eyes, the weight of something unspoken. "You okay?" I asked one evening as we watched the rain paint the windows of my apartment. She nodded too quickly. "Just tired." But Emily was never tired. She was the kind of person who could stay up all night chasing ideas, chasing life. Sleep was always an afterthought. Now, suddenly, it wasn't. The days got quieter. Her energy began to fade like sunlight slipping behind buildings at dusk. There were no more spontaneous rooftop dances. No more half-cooked midnight pasta. She stopped writing. I stopped drawing. Our apartment, once alive with color and music and words, began to feel like a museum of who we used to be. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. We were walking in Central Park. It was late November, the trees stripped down to their bones. She was leaning on my arm more than usual, but I didn't say anything. We passed a group of kids throwing leaves, and one of them bumped into her. She stumbled, hard. and didn't get up right away. I dropped beside her, heart pounding. She smiled like she was embarrassed. Sorry. My legs, they just gave out. I helped her up, but something inside me cracked open. That night, I didn't let her brush it off. You're not just tired, I said, my voice barely holding together. She looked down at her hands. No. Silence swallowed the room. How long have you known? She closed her eyes. 3 months. Maybe more. I felt like the air was being pulled out of my lungs. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice was soft, almost childlike. Because I didn't want you to look at me like this. Like I was disappearing. That's when she told me. It was a rare neurological condition. Not terminal, not yet. But progressive. Her muscles would weaken. Her speech might slow. Eventually, her memory. Doctors didn't have answers, only timelines. And even those were vague. I sat there, unable to move, listening to the person I loved more than life explain how she was slipping away, not in a dramatic collapse but in pieces. Quietly. Gradually. Like the slow erasure of chalk from a board. But you still laughed, I whispered. You still danced. You still made me believe. Because I was still me, she said. I still am me. I took her hands. They were shaking slightly, but I held them tighter. Then I'm not going anywhere. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. You say that now. But it's going to get harder. I might forget things. I might forget you. I'll remind you, I said. Every day if I have to. We held each other for hours that night. I memorized the way her hair smelled, the sound of her breath, the rhythm of her heart against mine. And in the days that followed, I tried to be strong. I tried to be her anchor. But strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to stay when everything in you wants to run. She began needing help with small things. Zippers. Stairs. Remembering names. She hated it. Hated being vulnerable. Hated the way people started talking to her like a fragile thing. I never did. I spoke to her like she was still the woman who ran barefoot through the rain and challenged me to paint with my eyes closed. But no matter how hard I tried to hold her close, she was fading. And I couldn't stop it. Then came the day I'll never forget. I walked into her apartment, our apartment, and found her standing in the middle of the living room, frozen. Eyes wide. Pale. I don't know where I am, she whispered. I don't know who I am. My world shattered. And that's where everything changed. I don't remember who I was before Emily forgot my name. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet and cruel, like sitting in a room with the person you love most, and realizing their eyes don't recognize you anymore. That's what happened the morning after she said she didn't know who she was. She woke up disoriented, scared. I tried to soothe her, it's okay, I'm here. It's me. It's Noah. But the way she looked at me, like I was a stranger. That look burrowed into my bones. Something inside me broke that day. And I haven't been able to put it back together since. In the days that followed, I stopped shaving. Stopped drawing. Stopped calling friends. My phone would buzz with messages, thinking of you, Mun, let me know if you need anything, but I couldn't even answer. What could I say? That I was losing her in real time. That every hour stole a piece of her and left me watching. I became a ghost in my own life. I'd walk the halls of our apartment like a stranger in a museum. Touch her old notebooks, smell her scarves, read her unfinished poems and try to feel something other than helpless. But numbness has a way of becoming comfortable. Still, I refused to leave her side. Every morning, I made her tea, even when she forgot she liked it. I told her stories, our stories, about the night we got caught in the rain, or how she once convinced a jazz bar owner to let us slow dance in front of strangers. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes she didn't understand. But I kept going. I became a recorder of memories. A guardian of who she was. I wrote down every story, every moment, every detail of her, the way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous, the way she talked to street performers like they were old friends. I needed the world to remember who she was, even if she couldn't. The doctors gave me pamphlets. Support groups. Therapy options. None of it mattered. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to fix it. But how do you fix someone slowly disappearing? One evening, I broke down in the bathroom. Locked the door, fell to the tile, and just screamed. I don't know how long I was in there. Time had started to feel like water, slipping through my hands no matter how tightly I tried to hold on. When I came out, she was sitting on the couch, looking at a photo of us. One from the park the day we met. She looked up at me, confused but soft. "You look like him," she said. I forced a smile. "That's because I am him." She blinked. Then reached out, touched my face gently. "I think I loved him." My throat tightened. I nodded, swallowing every sob. "He loved you too. Still does." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside her as she drifted off, memorizing the rise and fall of her breath. I held her hand like it was the only real thing left in the world. And I made a promise. If this was a battle between her and the darkness, then I was going to fight. I didn't know how yet, but I couldn't just sit and watch. Not anymore. Because love doesn't vanish with memory. It doesn't crumble with disease. Real love, it stays. It fights. And so would I. Even if it meant tearing myself apart to keep her whole. Somewhere along the line, sadness turned into suspicion. It started with a prescription bottle. One I didn't recognize. It was a quiet Thursday. Emily was asleep on the couch, curled up like she used to after long writing sessions, only now, sleep wasn't peace. It was escape. I was tidying up, pretending everything was fine, when I found the bottle wedged between the couch cushions. It didn't have her name on it. It had someone else's. Dr. Kenneth S. Lowell. A neurologist from Connecticut. We lived in Manhattan. I stared at the bottle like it was a ticking bomb. This wasn't from her regular doctor. It wasn't a prescription I remembered. The dosage was wrong. And the warning label, may result in cognitive dissociation and temporary memory loss in rare cases, made my blood run cold. My hands were shaking as I Googled the name. Dr. Lowell. Not a specialist in rare degenerative diseases. He specialized in experimental neurochemical research. The kind that wasn't always legal. The kind that didn't always get approval from ethics boards. I kept digging. Forums. Obscure clinical trials. Lawsuits settled out of court. There were whispers, unconfirmed reports of his involvement in trials that altered memory. People who had signed consent forms and didn't remember signing them. A class action suit that vanished without headlines. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called Emily's primary neurologist. I tried to stay calm. I asked if she had ever referred Emily to a Dr. Lowell. Her answer was immediate. Absolutely not. That man lost his license 2 years ago. My heart started to pound. Is it possible he could have gotten to her without your knowledge? A pause. Then, only if someone intentionally directed her there. But she wouldn't have found him on her own. Someone sent her to him. But who? Emily barely had any family. Her parents were gone. Her only sibling, her brother, Mark, had cut ties years ago. Said she was too chaotic, too emotional, always chasing dreams instead of settling down. They hadn't spoken in over 4 years. Except a month before the first symptoms started, she'd told me something strange. Mark reached out, she had said, stirring her tea. Out of nowhere. Wanted to reconnect. I remembered brushing it off. Maybe he's changed. But what if he hadn't? What if that reconnection was something else? I tracked Mark down through a mutual friend and drove 2 hours to confront him. He lived in a sterile suburban neighborhood, the kind where everything looks manufactured and no one smiles for real. When he opened the door and saw me, he tried to close it. I blocked it with my foot. You sent her to him, didn't you? His face froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Dr. Lowell. The pills. The fake diagnosis. You wanted to fix her, didn't you? Thought she was broken. She was unstable, he snapped. You think that life she was living was healthy? Writing stories like a child, chasing pipe dreams, she needed help. She needed support. Not a chemical lobotomy. His voice cracked. You weren't there when she was younger. You didn't see what she put our family through. The panic attacks. The mood swings. I was trying to protect her. By drugging her mind into silence. I could barely contain the rage in my chest. I left that house shaking. The next day, I hired a lawyer and filed an emergency injunction. Lowell had operated illegally, off-record, without consent. The medication he administered was under investigation, unapproved, unregulated. And Emily, she had been his silent test subject. It took weeks, but we gathered the evidence. Records. Medical traces. Testimonies. Mark eventually cracked under pressure, confessed to helping arrange the treatment. In exchange, Lowell offered a chance at normalcy for his sister. No paperwork. No ethics board. Just a handshake and a promise. They thought no one would notice. They didn't count on me. Eventually, Lowell was arrested. Mark was charged with medical negligence and conspiracy. The case made quiet headlines, but I didn't care about the noise. I cared about one thing. Emily. The moment the trial ended, I ran back to her. She was sitting in the garden of the rehab facility, sunlight in her hair, staring at a tree like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. I knelt beside her and took her hand. It's over, I whispered. He can't hurt you anymore. She looked at me for a long time. Then blinked slowly. And for just a second. Noah, she whispered. My heart collapsed. Yes, I choked out, gripping her hand tighter. Yes, it's me. I'm right here. That was the first time she'd said my name in weeks. It lasted only a few seconds before she drifted again. But it was enough. Enough to tell me she was still in there. And that meant I still had something to fight for. People like to think change happens all at once. Like a switch flipping. Like some dramatic moment where you decide to become stronger, braver, colder. That's not how it happened to me. I didn't wake up one day as someone else. I eroded into him. After Lowell was arrested and Mark disappeared into courtrooms and guilt, the world expected me to feel relief. Justice had been served. The villain exposed. Case closed. But love doesn't work like a courtroom verdict. Emily didn't suddenly come back to me. Not fully. Some days were better, her speech clearer, her eyes more focused. Other days, she slipped again, lost in fog. The doctors said the damage was partially reversible but not guaranteed. Some pathways in her brain had been altered too long. Recovery isn't linear, they said. Neither was I. I quit my job. Sold my car. Moved closer to the rehab facility so I could walk to her every morning. I learned how to read medical charts, how to measure progress in millimeters instead of miles. I learned patience in a way life had never demanded from me before. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being the man Emily fell in love with. The old me was soft, passive, a dreamer who believed love alone could fix broken things. This version of me. He read legal documents at 3 a.m. He argued with doctors. He memorized medication schedules like prayer. He didn't hope blindly anymore, he planned. Emily noticed it before I did. One afternoon, during a good stretch, she looked at me and frowned slightly. "You're different," she said. I smiled automatically. Different how? She searched my face, like she was reading between lines. "You don't float anymore. You're grounded. Heavy." I wanted to tell her it was because I was carrying the weight of both of us. But instead I said, "Is that bad?" She shook her head slowly. "No. Just sad. I liked the way you used to look at the world." That night, I sat alone on a bench outside the facility and finally admitted the truth to myself. Love had changed me. But not gently. It carved pieces out of me and replaced them with something harder. Something sharper. I had crossed lines I never thought I would, lying, threatening, manipulating systems, all in the name of saving her. And I'd do it again. That realization scared me more than anything. Because if love could turn me into this version of myself, what else could it take? Weeks passed. Emily improved, slowly. She remembered fragments, songs, smells, moments. Sometimes she remembered us. Other times, she looked at me like I was a kind stranger who refused to leave. And every time, I stayed. One evening, during a therapy walk, she stopped suddenly and grabbed my arm. "I know this sounds strange," she said, breathing hard, "but I feel like someone gave up a lot for me." My throat tightened. "Yeah," I said softly. "Someone did." She looked straight at me. Clear. Present. "I don't remember everything," she continued, "but I know this, whoever that person is, they're not the same anymore." I nodded. "No. They're not." She squeezed my hand. "I hope it was worth it." I didn't answer right away. Because the truth is, becoming someone else always costs something. Innocence. Simplicity. Pieces you don't get back. But when I looked at her, alive, fighting, still here, I knew the answer. It was worth everything. Even if, in saving her, I lost the man I used to be. I used to think love was about holding on. Now I know it's also about letting go, without ever stopping the feeling. It's been 7 months since the trial. 4 months since Emily remembered my name 2 days in a row. And 3 weeks since she called me Noah for the last time. We were sitting under a tree outside the facility. Late October. The kind of cold where the air bites but the sun still tries its best. She had her blanket draped over her knees, and her hair, once wild and sunlit, was tied back, thinner now, paler. I was reading to her. Not poetry. Not stories. Just her own words. From the journals she'd written before everything went dark. She listened quietly as I read. Then, without looking at me, she whispered. "Promise me something. Anything. If I go, if I disappear again, don't try to save me next time. Just love me where I am." I felt something tear inside me. Don't. "I'm tired," she said, gently. "Not just my body. My soul. And I know you want to fix it all. You always do. But maybe, love isn't about fixing. Maybe it's about staying, even when there's nothing left to hold." I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. Because what else can you do when the person you love asks for peace? I stayed that whole night with her. We didn't speak much. Just sat, her head against my shoulder, the stars above us. And I knew deep in my chest that something was ending. Not with violence. But with quiet. A week later, she stopped speaking altogether. Her eyes still followed light, still blinked at sound. But her words, the last beautiful pieces of her, slipped away. I kept visiting. Every day. I'd sit beside her, even if she didn't move. I'd read her notes. Play her favorite records. Hold her hand like it was the last thread connecting our two lives. And then, one morning, she was gone. Not in a dramatic way. Just, gone. Her body still here. Her breath still steady. But the her I knew, the fire, the laughter, the sharp wit and soft soul, had faded into something beyond my reach. I walked home in the rain that day. Didn't use an umbrella. Didn't care. Because the thing no one tells you about real love is that it hurts. Not just in loss. But in presence. In the knowing that no matter how hard you hold on, love will always come with risk. With ache. With cost. But you choose it anyway. I still carry her stories. I still wear the watch she gave me on our first Christmas. I still find her notes hidden in books she left behind, little reminders of the girl who saw beauty in everything. And every time I feel the weight of missing her, I also feel the truth. Love and pain are not opposites. They're twins. Born from the same need to matter, to remember, to connect. If you've truly loved someone, you will hurt. But that pain means it was real. So yes, I am someone else now. Not just because I lost her, but because I had her. And in that quiet space between memory and grief, I know I was lucky. Because some people go their whole lives never finding this. I found her. And I loved her. And no matter what the world took from me, it will never take that.